Let's turn our attention to Libya, where forces loyal to Colonel Gaddafi are closing in on the rebel stronghold of Bengazi. It's as major world powers are trying to reach an agreement on imposing a no-fly zone over Libya to prevent airstrikes against the opposition forces. But as RT's Paula Slier reports from Tripoli, even if they do reach a decision, it could be too little too late.
The situation on the ground is very much turning in Gaddafi's favor. His troops are now advancing towards the rebel stronghold of Bengazi in the east. The government is saying that it will have a victory there within days, and Gaddafi himself has again appeared on state television saying that if this is a foreign plot, we will crush it. If it is a domestic plot, we will crush it. Residents inside Bengazi have either already fled to the Egyptian border, or others are holed up in their homes fearing a massive onslaught by Gaddafi's forces. Here in Tripoli, government officials have confirmed that the town of Az-Jabia, which is some 160 kilometers away from Bengazi, it is the last major rebel stronghold before Bengazi. Officials here saying that this town is firmly in the hands of Gaddafi's men. On the international stage, the second day of a United Nations Security Council meeting is being held to discuss what to do with Libya. They are debating a two-part resolution, which is essentially, we're being told, being discussed paragraph by paragraph. Now, the first part of the resolution has been put forward by Lebanon. It is representing the Arab League, and it endorses a no-fly zone to be put in place. But what is perplexing council members is that the Arab League also says there must be no foreign intervention, and at the same time no Arab country has come forward to be part of such a mission. The second part of the resolution is being proposed by Britain and France. It looks for further sanctions to be slapped on the Gaddafi regime, and this seems to have a lot of approval, certainly more approval from the international community than the idea of a no-fly zone. Essentially, it's asking for individuals and entities to have travel bans imposed on them and also their assets frozen. Increasingly, it does seem as if there is a schism in the international community, with France being the first to officially recognize the opposition as the official voice of Libya. The question is being asked whether or not other countries will follow, and if indeed they do, does this mean we'll have an international community that is divided over the question of Libya? At the same time, other questions being asked is why is the international community, the UN in particular, even discussing the whole notion of a no-fly zone when the G8 foreign ministers rejected it? Certainly it does not seem as if there is a civil war happening here in Libya, and certainly with Gaddafi's men gaining momentum on the ground, it doesn't seem as if a civil war is likely to take place.
RT's Paula Slier reporting right there. Well, meantime, France, Britain and the US have found themselves in hot water over their hasty decision to denounce Colonel Gaddafi. Well, so says Mark Almond, who's a visiting professor of international relations at Bill Kent University in Turkey.
The Western states now risk looking foolish, having pushed through resolutions condemning Gaddafi, having said he was over and done with. If he doesn't fall, then their standing will weaken. On the other hand, pushing ahead with military operations for reasons of your own prestige without actually knowing who you're going to support on the ground, what kind of regime or system of government is going to take its place, whether we might find a lot of resistance by people who support Gaddafi, including to Western forces, seems to me to be a very risky thing. And unfortunately, when psychological pressures of President Sarkozy, Prime Minister Cameron, even perhaps now President Obama, not wanting to seem weak, are the decisive factor, you can go from one mistaken position to another one. The other problem for the West is the oil is important, and nobody would deny that in terms of the world economy. But if the Colonel Gaddafi's regime stays in power, what's going to happen to oil supplies to Western Europe, particularly to Italy and France, who he may now see as enemies? And particularly the French government has put its reputation on the line by saying that Gaddafi has to go, and they recognize the rebels. We could see an economic war as well as perhaps a continuing civil war.